Good evening and welcome to Thorold City Council. I'd like to call this meeting to order. First on our agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Moved by that's Councillor Longo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Sharon that that Council adopts the agendas for the meeting of May 1st, 2018, and any and all revisions published April 27th, 2018.
Thank you, Councillor Longo. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. My mayor's report is brief today. Every year on April 28th, we remember the thousands of workers who have been killed, injured, or suffered illness as a result of work-related incidents. In doing so, we also honor the many families and friends who have been deeply affected by these tragedies. Every worker has the right to return home safely at the end of each workday. To acknowledge Saturday of mourning, municipal flags were lowered to at half-mast, half-staff. Residents can now register for this summer's swimming lessons. There have been changes to the pool schedule and programming. So be sure to check out the municipal website for details about the new aquafit class, adult lane swim, senior swim, and evening and weekend swim lessons. Go to www.thorold.com and search the Thorold Community Pool for all the details. I'd like to congratulate Councillor Tim Whalen, who's celebrating his 65th birthday today.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mayor, I'd like to also wish you all the best in your 70th, I guess, last week?
Yeah.
All the best for many more to come.
Yeah, time flies when you're having fun. Okay, that's my mayor's report. And I'll call on Regional Council Henry D'Angela for an update.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm here today because Council asked me to come and speak regarding, I believe there's an invitation to myself and Thorold Nonprofit Housing. So I just made a few little notes. I don't really have a presentation per se, but if there's any questions from Niagara Regional Housing side, I can answer those questions for you. But first of all, before I get to that, Mr. Mayor, I just want to thank city staff, especially the parks crew. Today was the first day of the Henderson's Pharmacy baseball tournament. It's one that I convene. It's the opening season of baseball here in Thorold. The parks crew did a fabulous job of putting the park together. It's the best I've seen it in a long time, and considering the poor weather that we've had in the month of April, my hat's off to them. The field is tremendously great, and the four games that we had there went really well today. So thanks, staff, for doing that, and also senior administration
it's my pleasure.
for supporting it. And also, Mr. Mayor, thank you for coming out and throwing the opening pitch. I won't tell anyone how it went, but I do have a t-shirt here for you, just thanking you for coming out and doing that this morning. And I do want to do a bit of a shout out for Councillor Longo, who scored the first game. I appreciate him being out there. His accuracy was really good as the two teams played really well, and he kept great notes. Well, thanks, guys. Just back to the original reason I was here, just providing a bit of an update regarding the issue with Thorold Nonprofit Housing and this was the rent subsidy agreements. Again, I believe Thorold Nonprofit Housing met with the Regional Housing of Niagara Regional Housing to discuss the extension or of the subsidy or the continuation of the subsidy. There's money in our budget for that from Niagara Regional Housing. So I think they're working in that direction to remain the 17 units rent geared income. So that's something that's being worked on between the two organizations. So I just wanted to give council an update. That's progressing well. Again, Niagara Regional Housing is very interested and very supportive of maintaining rent geared income units as the end of operating agreements end throughout the Niagara region. We have one of the highest success rates in the province of Ontario of maintaining those agreements and moving forward, because those are units that are providing affordable rent-geared income housing for residents throughout Niagara. So we want to make sure we continue those. Those are federal programs that we're running. They were 20-year, I believe 20 or 25-year programs that are ending. In the case of Thorold Nonprofit Housing, it's ending August 31st of 2018. After that, the federal subsidy runs out, but what we do at Niagara Regional Housing, we build in some additional funding to help continue with the subsidy so it's not lost and those units just don't disappear. Again, very strong, and myself, very strong advocate of making sure that the providers are giving funded money for either, and a good example, again, Thorold Nonprofit Housing, they built 14 senior units. That was partly funded by Niagara Regional Housing through our investment in affordable housing. So we do try to help our providers. They're sort of under the, like if you picture an umbrella, they're below us, but they have their own board, their separate own identity, and they operate their own, through their own constitution and rules. We try to help those providers to maintain units and also to build new units through Niagara Regional Housing. Not a lot of money comes forward for them, but I'm a big advocate of making sure the providers can do that because a lot of them have land that they can add additional units, relatively lower cost than going out to purchase land. So just a bit of an update on that. I'll open it up to questions if there's any questions, Mr. Mayor, through you. If you'd like, I can answer that. But again, I was here on the request through the clerk's office to come to council.
Thank you, Councillor D'Angelo. Are there any questions for our presenter?
Okay.
I guess that's it.
Okay.
Thanks,
Well,
thanks for coming.
Not a problem. And again, I offer it to all the councillors, if they do have a question, I know it's not just here, I'm accessible through phone or by email. Call me anytime if you have questions about housing or other regional issues that are beneficial to the city of Thorold. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, we're into adoptions of the minutes, regular council meeting of April 17th. Councillor Whalen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Neal, that the regular council meeting minutes of April 17, 2018 be hereby adopted.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any items for discussion? Seeing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. General Committee meeting minutes of April 17, 2018. Councillor Sharon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Longo, that the General Committee meeting minutes of April 17, 2018 be hereby adopted.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any items for discussion in these minutes? Seeing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Are there any conflicts of interest, councillors? Seeing none, I'll move on to our public meeting. This is about proposed amendment to the City of Thorold's comprehensive zoning bylaw 2140 in brackets 97. Port Robinson Estates subdivision to facilitate the development of the lands D14-05-2018. This public meeting is being held pursuant to the provision of the Section 34 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990 CP 13 as amended. The purpose of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is to rezone Part 1 identified on Figure 2 below to shopping center commercial SC zone with a site-specific provision to reduce the minimum lot area and to rezone Parts 2 and 3 to open space OS zone with a site-specific provision to reduce the minimum lot area and the minimum lot frontage. A sign-in sheet is located at the back if you wish to receive a copy of the decision of the City Council. At the same table, copies of the staff report are available for your information. I move into the presentation of the proposed amendments, and we have Mr. Ken Gagnon, agent for the applicant, to present the proposed application. Mr. Gagnon.
Good evening, everyone. This project has been in the mill for quite a while, 2 years now. Servicing's all proceeded, and they're in the stage of waiting for building permits. And just to fill you in on this property again, this drawing that you're looking at, north is to the right on all these drawings. That's Port Robinson Road to the right, Cottonmire Road on the bottom, Merritt Road to the left, and Highway 406 on the west, or west side. The plan of subdivision was draft approved and the zoning amendment was approved by council in 2016. We're clearing the conditions of approval. We've got the subdivision agreement in order. Zoning bylaw amendment 145-216 was passed. Agency clearances of all the conditions are coming in, and the final plan is prepared for registration by the surveyor. And when the surveyor was providing his lot certification, he discovered a little bit of an issue in the zoning bylaw. Here's the draft approved plan. And in the bottom left-hand corner, colored in orange, is the commercial block. And those two little pieces on the bottom right-hand side of the drawing are the two little park blocks that also need zoning adjustment. The large park block is in the middle there next to the commercial block. The status is service. We have a pre-servicing agreement. Stage 1 of the servicing is complete. We're waiting for plan registration for the building permits, and we need a little zoning adjustment to fix that up. Here's the drawing showing the zoning. The red block is the commercial block. The park block is that big part 4 in the middle, and then the two little park blocks are parts 5 and 6 in the bottom right-hand side of the plan. The commercial block, we need a special zoning provision. When the bylaw was passed, we didn't include the minimum lot area from 1.5 hectares down to 0.667 hectares. You might recall when the plan was being reviewed, initially there would have been a proposed commercial block there for about 30,000 square feet of commercial floor space, and it was agreeable that 18,000 square feet in this block was sufficient to handle the commercial needs in the area. So there's the commercial block again on the left side. That permits an 18,000 square foot plaza, and you can see the major park block sitting there on the right. The two little zoning amendments for the two little the park blocks, Park Block 414 and 415, reduced the lot area and reduced the lot frontages of each of the blocks. Again, there's the plan. You can see how it sits in parts 5 and 6. This is the actual setting along Kottmeyer Road, and you can see how these two park blocks fit in to that area. They really contribute to a streetscape plan, which the whole west side of Kottmeyer Road will be landscaped, and these two little park blocks fit into creating a landscape ambiance all the way along that street, leading to the park block and to the commercial block. The commercial block was intended in the draft approved plan at 0.667 hectares, and the 3 park blocks equal the required park dedication for the subdivision. The Kottmeyer Road streetscaping uses those two little park blocks, and it creates a landscape walkway leading to the park and the plaza. So this zoning adjustment is just intended to reflect what council originally intended in 2016. It's just a correction, sort of a housekeeping amendment. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Gagnon. Are there any questions of our presenter? Seeing none, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
I'll now call on Denise Landry, our senior planner, and she's presentation of proposed amendment by staff. Ms. Landry?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Staff have prepared a recommendation report on the proposed amendment that will be presented to council this evening. Copies of the report are provided on the back table for information. This concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? I'll move into the public participation. If a person or public body chooses to not provide oral comments at the public meeting or written comments before the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is adopted, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal that decision to the local planning appeal tribunal. Now at this time, is there anyone present who wishes to speak in favor of the application? Please come forward to the podium. That would be speaking for or against. Please state your name and address, sir.
Sure. My name is Mac Miskalsi. I'm the owner of Max Automotive, 2008 Cotmeyer Road. Do you want my home address, or is that sufficient?
You can give it to our clerk,
Okay,
assistant later on, after your presentation.
sure.
After your presentation.
Sure. I had a couple of questions, comments, I guess you could say. I'm assuming this is an amendment to an already existing, what's the word I'm looking for? For the shopping center, the commercial property's already been approved, and they're just amending the size of it, is that correct?
You'll have to ask Ms. Landry.
Through the mayor, that is correct. The applicant received zoning approval in 2016, and at this time, it's been identified that the size of the shopping center block does not meet the zoning in terms of the lot area, as well as the 3 open space blocks.
Okay. The other question I had is, I was informed of the amendment, but I wasn't informed of the original use of this as commercial property. When I first purchased my property a little more than 5 years ago, I was the only commercial property around. So I invested in the property in Thorold so I could basically receive the benefits. I was hoping the property would increase in the value and not decrease. Having this commercial property obviously affects me in a totally negative way, as well as all the construction has affected me very negatively. I've had to lay off one of my employees because of all this construction and the decrease in business. The way this has proceeded is really hurting my business, and this is actually going to hurt the resale value of my property, as well as if I decide to sell the business, because the books are dropping as well. So this puts me in a very difficult position. So I'm obviously totally opposed to this commercial property. I looked at what they're trying to do there, and it's more than what I'm allowed to do as a commercial property as well. Initially, when Empire and the city came to meet with me, and I was trying to work with them, the person from Empire said, you know, maybe Circle K will want to buy the property. I said, well, let me know. Apparently, I'm not zoned to have a gas station there. Even though it was a gas station previously, now it can't be. But this commercial property can be whatever it wants to be, and I've looked at the list, and it's more than I can provide. So again, having that commercial property just totally devalues my property. So I just wanted to make the point that I'm totally opposed to this, and I think this is the way this whole procedure's gone about is very disappointing for me. So that's all I wanted to say, is I'm totally opposed to it.
Are there any questions for our presenter? Seeing none. Thank you very much, sir. Is there anyone who would like to speak for or against this proposal? Thank you. This fulfills the requirements of the General Act RSO 1990 CP 13 pursuant to Section 34. The City's General Committee will consider staff's recommendation report, which will be subsequently considered by City Council at a future date. Anyone wishing to receive a copy of City Council's decision as a result of this application is asked to submit their request in writing to the City Clerk. As such, this public meeting portion of this application is now closed. We have nothing under civic recognition, and we do not have any presentations. So moving to motions for support, City of Thorold, Councilor Ugolini.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Neal. Whereas the Town and Gown Association of Ontario hosts an annual conference in member municipalities on an annual basis, and whereas at the Town and Gown meeting of April 16th, 2018, the committee passed a motion that the City of Thorold, City of St. Catharines, Town of Niagara-on-the-Lake, and City of Welland, Region of Niagara, Brock University, and Niagara College collaborate efforts in order to host the annual conference in 2019. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the City of Thorold request each stakeholder listed above support this initiative, and 2, that the Thorold City Council be kept informed as to the status of this resolution.
Are there any speakers to the resolution? Seeing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Another City of Thorold, Councillor Pion.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Sharon. Whereas the Darlene Ryan Port Robinson Community Center Board of Management mandate is to foster, improve, and enhance the community center. And whereas the community center in Port Robinson is the hub of a variety of activities in that area. And whereas the Darlene Ryan Port Robinson Community Center Board of Management would like to continue to offer a few activities throughout the year. And whereas at its April 18th, 2018 Community Center Board meeting, the committee stated their desire to host a barbecue event on June 2nd, 2018 at the Community Center. And whereas Thorold City Council must provide approval for each activity that falls outside the board mandate, now therefore be it resolved that Thorold City Council approve the Darlene Ryan Port Robinson Community Center Board of Management request to host a barbecue on June 2nd, 2018, and that the cost to a maximum of $550 for the event be approved and funded from the pasta dinner event.
Thank you, councillors. Are there any speakers to this resolution? Seeing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. City of Port Colborne, Councillor Whalen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Neal, that the correspondence received from the City of Port Colborne from its council meeting on April the 9th, 2018, requesting the Region of Niagara to immediately replace board members of the MPCA with members selected by the lower tier municipalities, and to establish guidelines for the recruitment, selection, and appointment of individuals to be placed in during the next selection of the MPCA board members, and the guidelines be developed with criteria based on skill set carried out by the lower tier municipalities be received and supported.
Are there any speakers to the resolution? Seeing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Town of Niagara-on-the-Lake, Councillor Neal.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. As we all know, libraries are changing in their scope and what they do to present to the public. And now we're getting more technology in the libraries across Ontario, but specifically in Thorold. If you come into the library now, there's lots of technology. So I have a motion here, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Ugolini, that the correspondence received from the Town of Niagara-Lake from its council meeting of April 16th, 2018, urging the province of Ontario to recognize the contribution of local libraries within their communities and to cease the 20-year budget freeze to local public libraries in acknowledgement of the services they offer to all residents, and to reinstate adequate and appropriate funding for local public libraries, increasing each year going forward in line with the Consumer Price Index, be received and supported.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any speakers to the resolution? Seeing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Regional Municipality of Halton, Councillor Ugolini.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this one's going to take a while.
Okay, I see that.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Neal. Whereas under the Municipal Act, Ontario municipalities have the authority and responsibility to advance and protect the economic, social, and environmental well-being of the municipality and the health, safety, and well-being of persons. And whereas the provincial government has designated Ontario municipalities to have responsibility to establish official plans that meet or exceed provincial standards for managing and directing physical change and effects on the social, economic, built, and natural environment. And whereas CN Rail has declared that the province of Ontario and the Halton municipalities, which includes the city of Burlington, town of Halton Hills, town of Milton, and town of Oakville, and the Conservation Halton have no regulatory role whatsoever with respect to a proposed truck rail development that will have direct impact on the economic, social, and environmental well-being of the municipality and health, safety, and well-being of residents. And whereas the Halton municipalities and Conservation Halton recognize that railways are a matter of federal jurisdiction, but assert that truck rail developments have non-rail aspects that engage multiple areas of provincial and municipal government regulatory responsibility. And whereas the Halton municipalities and Conservation Halton have commenced a court application to confirm their legitimate regulatory control in respect of the CN development. And whereas CN's position that its proposed truck rail development falls exclusively under federal jurisdiction, if upheld, would create a regulatory gap that would prevent the province of Ontario, the Halton municipalities, and Conservation Halton from discharging their statutory responsibilities and leave CN Rail, a for-profit company, to self-regulate on matters that engage provincial and municipal responsibilities. And whereas, irrespective of the merits of CN's proposed development, CN's interpretation of jurisdiction over this development, if upheld, would be detrimental to all provinces and municipalities that contain existing or proposed developments that engage matters of federal, provincial, and municipal regulatory interest. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City of Thorold endorse the principles that there must be a cooperative approach to all developments that engage federal, provincial, and municipal regulatory matters. The existence of federal regulation over the development does not preclude and may require provincial and municipal regulation of the proposed development to avoid regulatory gaps. That the City of Thorold calls on the Government of Ontario to join the court application of the Halton municipalities be received and supported.
That was a long one.
Oh. Yeah.
Speakers to the resolution.
Oh, over here.
Go ahead, Councillor.
I just want to say that this is a very important resolution, and I hope we support it. We have our own CN rail issues in Thorold that we're dealing with, and we are setting up an important meeting and including our federal MP. And this shows you the importance of us being diligent on our end, and as well as supporting Halton. Thank you.
Are there any other speakers? Councillor Sharon.
I simply want to say that from experience, we know exactly what's going on here. The reality is that the railway thinks they can do whatever they want, and the community has to put up with it. We have an extra fire station in Port Robinson because of the train, and people are inconvenienced enormously because of the train just going back and forth across the tracks. Several of the people who live there think that the engineers have big smiles on their faces when they do that kind of thing, and the reality is that there is a need for rail, no question about it, but it has to be within the confines of a reasonable part of the community, and that's what this motion is trying to do. So I think we have to strongly support it.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other speakers? Seeing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. We're into statement by councillors. Councillor Hanley.
Yeah, I just apologize for my earlier thing, but I have a few things I have to say. Not all of them I want to. Port Robinson, I have a motion here, if I could ask, that the Rules of Procedure Bylaw 10.0 be waived in order to present a time-sensitive motion this evening pertaining to the South Main Street Bridge demolition. It's moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Ugalini.
Okay. I'll just call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried.
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Ugalini, that Council direct staff to cancel the South Main Street Bridge demolition project utilizing funding of $75,000 from the Capital Transportation Reserve. Council directs staff to immediately initiate the South Main Street Bridge Municipal Class Environment Assessment Study that will assess the structural integrity and safety of the structure while also assessing options to reuse the existing bridge. The study is to include considerations related to active transportation, social and historical uses of the bridge and environmental considerations.
I think Mr. George wants to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for the motion. Just as a note here, staff certainly are looking at developing a report to come to council in the very similar vein in terms of the motion being presented this evening, and the staff are looking again to put a Class A together to comprehensively assess the structure and come up with options based on that analysis to present to council for their consideration.
So you want to continue with your motion, Councillor Hanley, or do you want to?
Yes, I want to continue with the motion, and just to, if I could just to elaborate on it, at the public meeting that was held last Monday, it was noted that the ecosystem has inhabitants around the bridge, especially snapping turtles, and I know that it's been noted just this last week. They are in fact there and laying eggs in the underneath. I know that some may have seen the indemnity to build a sidewalk on the south side of the bridge, but I know that Director of Operations is working on a route right now, and I know that he's had some construction firms out there in regards to issuing that, and that they wanted to just fill out that the bridge and width of the bridge provides an ample room for a complete range of outdoor activities. The bridge fills a role similar to a boardwalk in Mousewort Park. Not to go over it, but Ron Devereaux had a very in-depth report and analysis and that, so I appreciate if council would support this motion.
Any other speakers to Councillor Hanley's motion? Councillor Whalen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can staff update us on the status of the temporary sidewalk and timelines when we might expect it? It's quite heavily traveled on. It'd be nice to get something to help people out.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So as Councillor Hanley has noted, we have reached out to a local reputable contractor and arranged a site meeting with them to determine a most appropriate temporary sidewalk, considering the bridge is not safe based on the most recent information that we have. So my understanding is that the contractor is getting back to us very shortly with a cost and a proposal for us that makes sense from a temporary perspective. I'm anticipating to see that within days, and we'll be looking to move forward on that rather quickly. With some of the considerations, as been noted tonight, is some of the environmental considerations, and certainly speaking with the community at PIC and Mr. Devereaux, the environmental considerations and the turtle breeding habitat considerations are also being considered in what we're trying to achieve here. So we're not trying to overstep what we're trying to do temporarily and not take environmental considerations, not take them into account. And we certainly are taking all those considerations into account. Bottom line is we'll get out there very quickly and move on that temporary accessible sidewalk for the community.
Good. Any other questions for Mr. Councillor Pion? Then Councillor Neal.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's a great motion. My question through you to staff is the closing of the bridge immediately. When the bridge was assessed as being unsafe, was there an order to close it immediately? Did we have a timeline to close it? And was the assessment of the bridge as being unsafe done predominantly for pedestrian and cyclist traffic? Because I'll leave it at that and do a follow-up.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the information, as I understand it, that we receive from our bridge and culvert assessment, which is a biannual structural assessment that we conduct for all of our bridges and culverts across the municipality. That study, from what I understand, yielded that the results of the structural analysis deemed the structure to be unsafe for both vehicular traffic and for pedestrian traffic. And at that time, really, the bridge was, from looking at things, there were some Jersey barriers that were placed there as a measure to make sure that vehicular traffic wasn't placed there. When the notice of the PIC came out, engineering staff came and identified to me that there appeared to be pedestrian traffic, and they also told me that there was a recommendation that the bridge be not utilized by pedestrians. So we certainly, considering all of that information, we felt it prudent to ensure that that we signed it and that we ensured that pedestrians were limited to not access that bridge, considering the information that we have.
Just a follow-up. Thank you. So the original assessment was for both vehicular and pedestrian traffic. Did they consider at all whether if we just limited to pedestrian, it would be safe at the time to use? Did they consider that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't have that information per se. What we will be able to do to answer that question is going through the environmental assessment. All of those considerations will be on the table, along with obviously the life cycle of the bridge. My understanding is that it's beyond its existing life cycle currently, and so those considerations will be part of the considerations for the options for the go-forward approach.
Okay, thank you. I guess what I'm getting at is that it's beyond its life cycle, but the original intention was for this to be both a vehicular and a pedestrian. So from the point of view of vehicular traffic, yes, it's beyond its life cycle, but I find it difficult to believe that people can't walk safely on the bridge. But so be it. If that has been officially declared, then I guess we have to act. What I was trying to get to is that while we wait for the temporary sidewalk to be in place, and while we look at options for vehicular and pedestrian traffic over the bridge to be possible, because in my view, the option of demolishing it is not, I don't consider that an option. Is it possible temporarily to still allow pedestrian traffic on there while we wait for a temporary sidewalk, or is it so unsafe that we have to immediately stop people from walking over this bridge?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the answer to that is no.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have a ferry committee which we've been dealing with a ferry situation in Port Robinson for the last 3 or 4 years, and finally got it moving and grooving, I'll call it. And part of the discussions, of course, is doing a trail all the way to Niagara Falls, Chippewa. And part of that trail system is this bridge. And until very recently, we didn't realize that we're not supposed to be crossing the bridge on foot or by bicycle. So my question would be to make sure that that particular committee has input in whatever happens for that bridge. And I agree with Councillor Pion that unless it's going to cost us $1 million to put it back together again, I think we need to make sure it happens.
Through Mr. Mayor, to answer Councillor Neal, absolutely. The Class EA process is a public process, so there's a requirement for public consultation. We certainly will consult extensively with the public and with the community to make sure that the go-forward approach is sound from all perspectives.
Councillor Sharon.
Mr. Mayor, I really don't have a question here. What I really would like to say is just a very short statement. This is a very important item for the community. That community has been hit in a lot of different ways over the years, and they feel isolated and certainly not cared for. That was changing. We want to make sure it continues to change with a very strong group in the Darlene Ryan Community Center who are doing things. We've already passed something today that helps with them. This community needs to be informed, needs to be kept up with what we're doing and why we're doing it. I don't expect our Director of Operations to change what is necessary and what is absolutely important for the community or for the city to do, because it's safe and follows the rules and regulations there, but we need to make sure that we're talking to the community as that's happened. And I'm sure that both can take place in a very, very positive way. And the people of Port Robinson will work with us. It's very obvious when they responded to the closing responding in a negative way, but a very strong way. So let's try to make it so it works the other way around, that they respond to what's going on because it's a good thing for the community and the community understands what's happening.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? Councilor Pion?
Yeah, I guess just what I'd like to say is that the order went out to demolish the bridge. The way I would look at it is that it's an order to, because of safety reasons, and we have to abide by those, to block temporarily the bridge to pedestrian and bicycle traffic. But I see it basically as an order to temporarily block it until we come up with an option to open it up again. I do see it as opening it up again. There are multiple ways in which you can do that. If it becomes part of a multi-municipal link for a trail, then we can look at possibly getting funding elsewhere. But I don't see how we can't come up with some way of keeping this open for pedestrians and cyclists in the long run. So temporarily it has to be shut down, but I don't look at it as a demolishing order. I look at it as a temporary shutdown order until we come up with options to open it up again.
Just one quick thing, Mr. Mayor Luciani, sorry. We're given $75,000. I'm involved in civil construction. I'll give a guesstimate right now. It costs us at least $750,000 to demolish that bridge. So just to give you an idea. So that'll be my guesstimate. We'll wait and see what comes back. But I would say 75,000, 10 times that, $750,000. So we're going to get both assessments, which will be good, and then we can make a great decision, a good decision, and an accurate decision. And I appreciate all the work that the Director of Operations has done in helping me in regards to this.
Okay. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried.
If I could, Mr. Mayor, again, I apologize for earlier tonight. McAdam Park, we're working. All the stalls are in. Today, the roofer just got back. Our interim CBO will be getting the washrooms installed. The toilets, all the partitions are already up. We'll have all the soft and the facing eave troughs on in the very near future, so we're ready to go. I had gone through the numbers with Mr. Wild, just to let you know, councillors, I did ask council for $10,000 because I thought I might be running short on funding, but we'd still had, to this date, $14,420. So we're going to be 100% complete. We're hoping and that stuff, and our projective is May 24th weekend, because I do know that Curtis Dre, one of his items is that our pools be open from May 24th weekend until Labor Day weekend, and to let council know. And another thing, and the public know, and I'm very pleased to say this, is that in the past our washrooms at Schmon Park, for example, South Confederation and other parks remained closed majority of the time, and only when someone booked the park were they actually used. This year our washrooms will be open from 8 in the morning till 8 at night at all parks. And that's something as a council and that stuff and staff should be proud of in accomplishing. So McAdam Parks will be a go. The kids will have a washroom facility out there, and it won't sit idle. It'll be very well maintained. We have a gentleman coming in to paint the doors, so ready to go. I know it's taken a little bit of time, but just to update council on it. And it's a great thing for my fellow councillors and myself to be proud of, and the community to be proud of in itself too. I did ask about a regional councillor, and my one concern about the regional councillor, I realize that he comes here, but my one concern is that us as councillors, we have to divulge, or before Friday at 4:30, state what we're going to come here to discuss, so it gives staff time to research and be able to answer. Whereas as tonight, the regional representative come here, but there's no description. So I feel that council should be notified as what, if he is coming to council, the regional rep, what his intentions are to talk about, to give council time to do some research if they want to really question him. Because really we're now as councillors having to divulge prior, whereas in the previous, when the regional councillor was a delegate, the delegate had to divulge what he was going to talk about. But now that he's got his own agenda or his own line item, he doesn't have to divulge what he's going to talk about. So we're blindsided. We don't have an opportunity to prepare to ask questions. So that was one of my concerns. Right? If we could ask that, and I'm asking not at Monday at 4:30 either, like councillors, possibly Friday at 4:30, because me, Monday at 4:30, and then I work 10-hour shift on Tuesday, how much time do I really get time to research it? Whereas because as a councillor, we're doing it Monday at 4:30, we're directing our staff, our questions mostly towards staff, so it gives them ample time to answer. You know, or do we do it Monday, like, to me, Monday at 4:30, I'm stuck.
So are you putting that in a form of a
I
motion?
can put that as a form of a motion that we ask that council be informed of the description of the agenda in regards to the regional council presentation on council evenings.
Have you got a seconder? Councillor Payon.
Can I speak to that?
And I'll call a speakers list. Councillor Payon, Councillor Longo.
Yeah, I'm fine with that motion. It's good to have the information ahead of time. I just do want to point out that the regional councillor was asked to come here to speak on housing issues. And so we did have notice from 2 weeks ago when we had our meeting, because we specifically requested him to come here to speak about nonprofit housing. And so...
I'm not talking particularly tonight.
Yeah, but just to make that clear. Okay.
No, I know, but still there's no description. Sure. See, even though we asked him to come, if he was going to do a slide presentation like Councillor D'Angelo has done sometimes, that we be notified of what's going to be on that slide presentation to prepare ourselves for questions. That's all I'm asking, no? Not to be negative or positive, just give us a little opportunity to be able to have an opportunity to research and that stuff, because I can't research when I'm find out when he's here, you know? So just if I could ask that.
Councillor Longo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just going to also say that we did invite Councillor D'Angelo here, but another point I'd like to make is Councillor Hanley's statements tonight. We should also know as a council what a councillor wants to speak about. If Councillor Hanley's going to come here tonight and speak about 4 different items, or 3, sorry, that's what he's entitled to, then we as a council should also know what Councillor Hanley wants to speak about, so we can be prepared to make comments or do research on things he's speaking about. Like McAdam Park. Maybe I wanted to ask some questions about McAdam Park, but not knowing that he was going to bring that up, I'm at a disadvantage. So if we're going to make that rule for the regional councillor, I think we should also make it for all councillors to inform the clerk what they plan on speaking about, and then the clerk can inform us through our e-scribe agenda what to anticipate.
So everybody's looking for more transparency, in other words.
Correct.
So can I add that as a friendly amendment?
Sure.
Can we put that as a friendly amendment to my motion?
Pardon me, I'm just having a discussion here.
Can I speak to that?
Yes, go right ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Longo. When I received the statements by councillors, which is Monday at 4:30, so I would have received it yesterday, we wouldn't necessarily amend our e-scribe agenda to say everything that councillors are going to say. We could only assume, because sometimes I get very vague information. What I can do is put it in the form of an email to all of councillors so they know what's coming up. But as far as amending an agenda, I wouldn't recommend that.
No, and I'd be open to that. That sounds fair. But to have some forewarning of what's going to come up, I think would be fair to all council.
So do you accept that as a friendly amendment?
Yes, sir.
Councillor?
Yes,
okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Are there any other speakers to this motion? Seeing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried.
My final thing, I know it's a 4th one, but I did ask for a procedural bylaw for the first one. Because of an article that had been written by Mr. Vandermaster, a journalist here, I've been directed to make the following statement. Below are some proposed revisions. If you're agreeable to reading the statement, Councillor, and only the statement, we will agree not to litigate. I have to agree. Because I can't afford it. And it's unfortunate that I don't have the support by individuals who I thought would. But I've been asked to read the following statement. It is reported in local media outlet that I allegedly made inappropriate comments at a budget meeting held on February 13th, 2018. And I ask if the reporter is recording this, that the words be identical to what I say and not hearsay. Towards the Professional Firefighters Association, IFFF, local 1182 about staffing and/or equipment-related issues. I sincerely apologize if my comments meant or were understood to be taken as a criticism of the excellent work that our professional firefighters do in our community. I respect IFF Local 1182 and understand that they have their members' interests and those of our community at heart. And if my comments were misconstrued and caused anyone harm as a result, I apologize. But please be assured that I meant no harm in the questions or comments I was making at the time. Respectively, Jim Hanley. I thank you for allowing me to say that comment.
Thank you. Statements by councilors.
Yep.
I have.
So that's two. I'll take that. So you can, yep.
Okay, I have Councilor Ugolini for statements by councilor. Please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I have two items. One is, I'm going to ask for a staff report from Curtis, our facilities manager, and Parks, Trails, Rec. The Tourism Advisory at our last committee meeting is recommended that council address the Vista issue at Lock 7 Viewing Center. Our request is to have staff report on costing that council can address or suggest alternative solutions. The problem in the summer at the center is when you're on the viewing deck, which is our landmark facility in Thorold for looking at the Welland Canal. As well, now we're mounting the plaque from the Prince of Wales. People can't see the boats because those trees growing up. So we've had a talk about this at our tourism meeting. Curtis was there, so we're asking for a costing and staff report come back to council.
Are there any speakers to Councilor Ugolini's motion? You need a seconder, by the way. Yeah, Councilor Whalen. Speakers to the motion. Councilor Sharon.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's extremely important to do this. The reality is that people come to this community to see the canal as one of the probably three major things that we have to offer. And with these trees aren't trimmed appropriately so they can actually see it, it really diminishes from the reason they came in the first place. So we have a lot to offer. Let's make sure that when people come, that we can see it, and certainly this is the first step to be able to do that.
I wonder if you will accept the friendly amendment from me. If you know across the street from I live across the street from the facility, and if you look south, and you'll see the pipe monument there, and you'll see a bench that also faces a forest. 15 years ago, there was no trees there was no forest. That seat was there specifically to watch the boats go by, and you were able to look south, and you can see all the ships going south or going upbound or coming downbound. So I would just ask that staff take a look at that and come back with suggestions.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Councilor Neal.
Yeah, just one thing. CN, of course, owns the track. Trillium runs on it, but CN owns the track. And they used to clean at least once a year, as you know. But for the last 15 years, they have not done that. And the trees have been allowed to grow, and now they're big trees instead of little trees. So I hope that you can come up with a solution that's going to work.
Councilor Sharon, or I'm sorry, Councilor Sharon. Councilor Whalen had his hand up first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Great idea. I just wonder if I can ask for a friendly amendment. Once those trees come down, I guess it's about 12 years ago, we had a committee paint a mural on the side of the Peter Street Bridge. Today it's fantastic. But just around the corner, underneath the bridge, the graffiti is disgusting. So as soon as those trees come down, it's going to look pathetic. So if we're going to add friendly amendment, do we look at covering that up also at the same time? So it's the area just right up directly underneath the Peter Street Bridge. Yeah. It's totally graffitied under there. It's amazing because the huge mural that depicts the seaway is still fantastic after 12 years, but just beside it, it's pretty bad.
Accept that as a friendly amendment? Okay. Are there any other speakers? Councilor Sharon.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for letting me speak twice here. The reality is that the trees are important because they keep that bank there. As
They
a guy
hold it.
who's been fighting banks and rivers up north, I understand how really, really important it is. So we have to look at something that not only keeps the tree and above the sight line and is trimmed appropriately, but we have to make sure that they are there to retain the bank. Otherwise, we may end up with just nothing but small growth on underbrush that's there, and it's a bigger problem every year. We used to have people who came along and just chopped trees down. That's not the way to deal with this. The bank has to stay there. The railway line has to be protected at the same time. And a beautiful tree up here with a beautiful view down here is the perfect way of looking at it.
Yeah, the root structure of the trees actually holds that bank up, so you got to be very, very careful about how much you chop away. You can't just pull all those trees out. It's something we're going to, I guess for lack of a better word, harvest those trees probably every 5 years or so. We're going to have to be trimming them.
Yeah.
But we don't want to take them out because they hold the entire bank up. Okay. I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Councilor Ugolini, you have another?
Yeah, the other issue is if I can get, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the city clerk, we need to send a letter to Niagara this week. Their delivery methods, I don't know if you've been watching in the subdivision, but they're throwing the papers right at the road, at the curb, and a lot of places, especially in student areas now where students are gone for the summer, the next week, the next paper goes there. And they're just getting driven over. It's just a litter, and we shouldn't be allowing that. Our expectations from Niagara this week is that that paper should be delivered to the porch or the mailbox like it used to be. And we need to send a message that those papers, that's where they get delivered to, because all it is creating litter, and especially when it rains, it turns to pulp. It's just making a mess in the city. And we need to address it. I know Fort Erie is addressing it. They're asking that it be delivered to the porch, and they're going one step further and asking that people can buy stickers that say no solicitation, and if that is on the mailbox, no paper gets delivered to that house. So I just think that let's be proactive, send them a letter, tell them what our expectations are on paper delivery, and then if they do not want to make a move on that, then we'll have to look at more severe measures, because basically what they're doing is litter in the city right now.
Okay, Councilor Neal, you?
Also included in that, of course, if the papers are in the front of the driveway and then the second one comes the next week and it's still there, obviously that I may think that that person isn't at home. And what happens when people aren't at home is you get broken into. So I think there's a safety aspect of this also.
So is that in the form of a motion, Councilor?
Well, yeah, the motion is that we write a letter, send a letter to Niagara this week, or address
Okay.
the
Seconder? Councilor
I'll
Neal?
second it.
Okay. Speakers, Councilor Longo, then Councilor Pion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've had people complain about this also, and as you know, I live in what's called the West Community of Confederation Heights. A lot of areas in Confederation Heights have super mailboxes, so a lot of people don't have mailboxes on their house. And part of the problem, even delivering these papers to somebody's doorstep, is it doesn't matter, it still blows around. I think we need to go a step further and ask them if they would only deliver papers inside a small plastic bag. I know it's not environmentally friendly, but it certainly isn't environmentally friendly having newspapers blow around our entire community. I think they need to be a better corporate citizen. If they're going to service Thorold, I think they need to be a little bit more responsible. And I'd like to add the fact that they should add plastic bags to deliveries if there's no mailbox.
Councilor, you accept that as a friendly amendment?
Yeah, I can just go one step further. Like, I know a lot of municipalities are making them put boxes in where there's super mailboxes for those type of deliveries, okay? So they have to actually put boxes there like that they can slide those in so that they don't get thrown. So that is another option. That's what they're asking, that they put separate boxes beside the super mailboxes that those type of flyers and brochures get thrown into. I think the thing is we need to address the issue and then move forward from there. I want to bring awareness right now to Niagara this week that we need to do a better job and then move forward from there.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Payon?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to point out if the letter could include what Councillor Ugolini also mentioned, that some people don't want it delivered at all. And if they have a sticker saying do not deliver, then don't do that. I know for a fact there's at least 2 people who have told me that they have a no sticker sign and yet it gets delivered anyway. Sometimes those sticker signs are ignored, so could we make sure they honor a sticker that says please no flyers or newspapers or anything, that is respected and nothing gets put in the mailbox?
Okay, thank you. Any other speakers? I agree with this motion. I know myself, on my street, every one of those newspapers are dropped right at the bottom of the driveway on the sidewalk, not even close to the porches or anything. They just the entire street. Once they're finished, you can see all green bags. So yeah, I agree with this. I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay. We have Councillor Whalen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know whether anybody, or hopefully haven't had the chance of coming west of the tunnel lately and having to take the scenic route to Glendale or to Highway 20 to get through the tunnel, the westbound lane. So what I was wondering, the Seaway have a bridge update, that every hour it's updated, it shows when the bridges are closed. Can we ask staff to get home and see if we can add the tunnel to this report? That way people know ahead of time if and when the westbound lane or eastbound lane is closed, that we don't have to come all the way to the tunnel to go all the way back and take a 20-minute ride to Thorold. So can I ask staff that we see if we can get added to that list, please?
Okay. So noted.
Thank you.
Anything else? Well, that concludes statements by councillors. We're into notice of motions. Are there any notice of motions? Seeing none, we'll move on to council, committee, and board meeting minutes. Minutes to review for information purposes. Councillor Neal.
Mr. Mayor, it's moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Ugolini, that the council receive and file the minutes of the committees of council, local boards as presented.
Thank you, Councillor. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. We will resolve into general committee. Do you want to take a 5-minute break or just keep going?
Keep going.
Okay. I'd like to call this general committee meeting to order. And I ask councillors, are there any conflicts of interest? Seeing none, we have no delegations. I'll call for reports to be brought forward from consent. Councillor Longo, which one?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to know if we could bring forward report PWC S 2018-16. It's the one for purchase of a total station survey equipment and GPS. I just have one question.
Okay, I'll put that on the floor. Go ahead. Ask your question.
Question now. Okay, great. So let me open it up here so I can refer to it. There was an appendix, and I'm just a little confused if staff could tell me regarding the cost evaluation. The proponent who we're selecting, which is probably a great selection, received a 10 out of 10, but everybody else received a 0 out of 10, and I'm just a little confused how that can happen.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the structure of the RFP was such that the top score received a full mark, and the remainder of the proponents would receive the score that they received. That information was provided in the RFP, so all bidders were aware of this stipulation.
So again, just to clarify, so if you had the best price, you received a 10 out of 10, and if you didn't, you received a 0?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct.
Are there any other items a councillor would like to pull from consent items? I'll call a question on all the consent items. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Move into discussion reports. PWCS 2018-11. Wake restrictions in the Welland River, and that's Mr. Stojanovic.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The recommendations of the report are that Council direct staff to begin the process of application to Transport Canada for the restriction of wakes and speed in the Welland River between the Welland Canal and the Moyer Street Bridge. So it concludes the report.
Thank you. Can I get a mover for the report? Councillor Whalen, you want to speak to it?
Yes, please, Mr. Mayor. First of all, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to thank staff for the diligent work that they've done to date. It's quite lengthy to date with the public meeting and so on, so thank you for that. One question. With respect to the wakes, no wake signs on the private property, can they be installed before this goes ahead, or is that part of the equation?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is part of the equation. So the process steps are identified in the report, and those process steps are steps 1 through 4 to restrict, to reduce wakes and signage, et cetera. Step 1 is consultation that we had with PIC. Step 2 is the application. Step 3 is a Transport Canada evaluation. And then step 4 is a Treasury Board of Canada Secretariat evaluation. So it's a fairly exhaustive process. So we're in the stage now of just requesting permission through Transport Canada.
Sounds good. Being this is federal jurisdiction, do we need to maybe ask our MP to help us with this also? Or not assist us a little bit more than going on our own?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if it's the wish of council, we could certainly pass along the requested or the application information to the local MP.
That's great. Mr. Mayor, can I add that to the motion, please? That we ask our MP to assist us with this also?
So add a second recommendation.
Pardon?
So we can add a second recommendation.
We'll be able to add a second recommendation there.
That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
If that's in the report.
That's fine.
We'll put that in the report?
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other speakers to this report? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. PWCS 2018-12. Restricted Parking Pilot Program in Confederation West Community. Can I get a mover for that report? Councilor Longo?
So move the report.
Speakers to the report. Councilor Whalen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I was just wondering if we should maybe look at the whole piece of the puzzle. Like, this is a great idea, but we're doing piecework again. I don't know whether you recall back, I think it was with Silver Maple, we had more miles on the street signs than what we have on my car. They were up and down so many times. Should we maybe have some public consultation so we don't move too fast on this? It's a great idea, but like I said, it had to have it go up and down.
Councilor Ogilvie.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we already had public consultation on this item, and then it was deemed to be a safety item because the fire trucks couldn't get down when cars were parked on both sides of the street, and that's why this is being initiated. And then if this is finds that it's working well, it's something that we're going to look at across the city. But there actually was public consultation in this already.
Councilor Longo.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the appropriate staff member. I'm just wondering, it says here, council will direct staff to monitor the effectiveness of the program for consideration implementation across the city. So I take that to mean that this would be a citywide initiative if this is successful?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Longo, that's correct. The intent here really is to try and focus on the one community in its entirety and then look at this as a one-year program, so staff will be out there monitoring how well things are working out and ensuring that the program is being effective and it's safe for the fire department to get through, including our plows. And the intent, absolutely, through your question as well, is that the input and information and feedback and the evaluation that staff provide in looking at this pilot program will be fed into our transportation master plan, and then through that exercise, we'll be looking at implementing a similar strategy for the entire city.
So one more question through you, Mr. Mayor. You had mentioned a one-year time frame, so is that what this pilot program you anticipate will last, 1 year, and then if it's successful, we'll move forward at that point?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other speakers? Seeing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. FES 2018-08, Amendment to Bylaw 42, 2012, our fireworks bylaw. And that's Chief Dixon.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. The recommendation is that council approve the minor amendment to the fireworks bylaw. The current bylaw allowed for 10 days prior to a holiday to set off fireworks. That period of time was too long. We'd like to restrict it, but at the same time, we'd like to recognize that if on the day of a holiday, Victoria Day or Canada Day, we will allow it 2 days after as a result of rain, which is consistent with other municipalities as well. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, get a mover for the recommendation, Councillor Ulini. Speakers to the recommendation, Councillor Whalen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question to our fire chief. Are we going to publicize these new restrictions in the news media? Probably the bags we're finding at the end of our driveways? With this big amendment coming on, it'd be nice for the public to know before Victoria Day gets here.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, this will be on the city's website and social media, and we will be going out to the newspapers as well.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. Any other speakers to the motion? I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. We have to go back to PDS 2018 and -10, and our clerk will give you a reasoning for that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the reason for this report was initially put under consent, but because it's a zoning bylaw amendment, it needs to be a discussion report. So Denise will go ahead and read the recommendations. So,
PDS 2018-10, recommendation report regarding zoning bylaw amendment for the Port Robin Estates subdivision, D14-05-2018. And I'll ask.
The recommendations of the report are that Director of Planning and Development Services report PDS 2018-10 be approved as presented, that General Committee support the zoning bylaw amendment to rezone Part 1 identified on Figure 2 below to Shopping Center Commercial SC Zone with a site-specific provision, and to rezone Parts 2 and 3 to Open Space OS Zone with a site-specific provision as proposed in Table 1, that the zoning bylaw amendment be presented to Council for approval at this evening's Council meeting, that the zoning bylaw amendment be approved by Council. These are the recommendations.
Thank you, Ms. Landry. Can I get a mover for the report? Oh, Councillor Neal?
So moved.
Speakers to the report. Seeing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. We have to go in camera for one report. I need a motion to go in camera. Councillor Ugolini. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried.